Today I sit down with the co-founder of Enyrgy. Enyrgy is a company that have created a UVB light therapy device. This device delivers the equivalent of 2.5 hours of summer sunlight in 4 minutes. Well, it's delivering the UVB component of the sunlight. Pretty much it allows you to get all of the good UVB light in a concentrated hit without the downsides. There's no risk of skin burning, there's no huge time commitment. It's all very convenient. But the interview isn't just about the product. The interview actually goes deep into the world of vitamin D. Now, I've been well aware of the benefits of vitamin D for many years now, over a decade. However, I learned a lot in this interview. I was fascinated, I was blown away. I'm sure you will be as well as you listen through it. We talk about the link between vitamin D levels and cognitive, mental disorders. We learn how it can actually be very hard to get enough UVB from the sun, even if you live in a very sunny climate. We talk about the downsides of oral vitamin D supplementation and why light is the best. And then of course, we have a good hard look at this Enyrgy UVB light therapy device. Now be sure to hang around because at the end of the video, we talk about price for this product and it is a high ticket item. However, the guys from Enyrgy have given me a pretty neat discount code. So more on that later in the video. Again though, I highly recommend just tuning into this conversation because you're gonna learn a bunch of stuff, I promise. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so welcome, David. It's a pleasure to meet you. Super excited to learn about the Enyrgy device. I have very little background knowledge on the product and on the company. So this is gonna be a journey for not only the viewers, but myself as well. I'm keen to talk to you about all things vitamin D, of course, the product, but more importantly, I want to know the backstory. How did you end up making a vitamin D product? Is that the right word? Is that what it is? A vitamin D?
It's a great question. It's still the main feature, and that's a great stepping off point. So yeah.
All right. So what's the story?
Our backstory, and I include Scott Hansberry, my partner, business partner, co-founder in this. We discovered by meeting some medical people, it was one of those things that was meant to be really, the importance of UVB light and what it does with the vitamin D and all the other things, which I'm sure we'll talk about here, about a little over 3 years ago. And at the time, what struck us immediately was, in my own case, my mother passed away from dementia. Scott's both parents passed away with dementia, Alzheimer's specifically with them. Mine, it wasn't diagnosed with my mother, but and his sister had breast cancer. His wife has had a go around with breast cancer. My wife has had issues with that as well. And it just struck us, wow, this is a big area. And then we, after doing some research on it, like I say, meeting the medical people, we started to understand how big it really was. It's vitamin D is a big deal. And it's really sunshine is what we're talking about here. And of course, sunshine is the reason we're here on the earth. It's life, right? It's the reason we can live. And so to put that and be able to bring it indoors like this is obviously a big deal. And so fast forward to where we are today, what that has looked like. We have in-house engineering at Enyrgy. Our company's called Enyrgy, spelled with a Y, by the way, but E-N-Y-R-G-Y. But in any case, we got to work on how we could do this in a science-based, research-backed way. And what we found was there's a lot of UVB light out there. And you can go on Amazon, you can find dozens, probably hundreds of products from $50 or $100 to, I don't know, maybe 500 or 1,000 or something. But what we recognized as we looked at it, analyzed it from the engineering standpoint was that it was everything we found was what I would call indiscriminate. And why I call it that is because it's typically just a bare bulb. And you really don't want UVB light in your eyes. So you should protect from that. And, most of them will say wear UV glasses and so on and so forth. But we realized that really no one had taken this to the level of making it a truly therapeutic device. And so then we underwent the journey as to how to do that. But in today's technology, like we're LED driven, right? I mean, I think most of what you have in the red light area, for instance, it's all LED. And that's the current science and the current technology. And so we were able to bring this this is a patented LED light card. It's the only one like it in the world. We're really proud of what we have there. But to make this so that it would actually work, you've got to solve a lot of issues. You got to figure out how to deal with the heat, how to deal with the power, how to, all these things. So we were so fortunate in meeting some fantastic scientists, some fantastic medical people that worked with us. We put together, the first thing we did actually was put a medical advisory board together, because we said, if we're going to be treating people, we better be treating them right. And so we have some phenomenal people on our advisory board and our scientific people on that side of it, and the engineering people. And so the key to all of this, Alex, really is the fact that we now conquered all of that, and we've met quite a number of people that tried, and they said, good for you guys, because we spent millions and failed.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And so the key to what we have here, as far as why is this a differentiator from other UV on the market today, which, like I say, there's lots of. This is a sophisticated device. It's got the medical background. It's really important. The engineers will tell you that the distance from here to here. Now, we should explain how this works. Normally, it'll go on a bracket on the wall that just adjusts up and down, right? And we're going to treat right on the midsection here. Like on a lady, it'll be below the bra line. So they don't have to take the bra off, just lift your shirt and step up and to bare skin. Right. And then treat the back the same way. And it's only a 1 to 2 minute treatment front and then back. So 2 to 4 minutes total.
Per day, like you do that daily?
Per day,
yeah.
once per day. Yeah. And we encourage people, we say 2-3 times a week is great, but if you can do it 7 days a week, let's do it. Because one thing the research shows is that you can't overdo it in terms of once a day. You can't overdo it, because if the body already has enough vitamin D, nitric oxide, serotonin, endorphin, BDNF, all the things that are a feature of getting this treatment, the body already has enough. It knows and just doesn't make it, because you're doing this all naturally. It's in your skin.
So it's putting out UVB light, which the body then utilizes to synthesize vitamin D. Right?
That's one of them, plus all the others, yes.
Okay, I want to touch on that soon. But then rolling it back a little bit. So your personal stories with your family losses, and I'm sorry to hear that. What's the connection there between those health issues and then how you ended up with this? I mean, you mentioned the sun and the light. Yeah, totally. Like a lot of the viewers obviously will be quite aware of that. But this isn't mimicking the sun. Like, it's not a full spectrum sun replacement, is it?
That's the key.
So how do you end up just on the UVB?
Natural sunshine. And this is where people watching might say, just a minute. The dermatologists tell us we shouldn't go out in the sun at all. Yes. If we do, cover up and wear a big hat, and then anything that's exposed, put sunscreen on. Where that's misleading us a lot. Like our vitamin D levels over the last couple of generations, since we've been avoiding the sun, have plummeted. It's now an epidemic. 89% of the US population is deficient in vitamin D. And that leads to, as documented in this book, and I thought it was really important to bring this along, just because what we like about this book, it's called Embrace the Sun. It's by Mark Sorensen and William Grant, medical people, scientists. And why we like this particular description of the benefits of sunshine is the fact that there's 285 pages of all the reasons that sunshine's great for you, provided you do it in reasonable dosages without burning. That's such a key, and that's where the dermatologists get all excited. But what's key with this particular book is then there's about 80 pages with 1,224 citations of the research that's been done to back up what they're saying.
Right.
So it's science, like I said earlier, it's science-based, research-backed. And so what's so important here is the fact that natural sunshine is 95% UVA, 5% UVB. Now, UVA, as we know, that's what gets the dermatologist mostly excited because it goes very deep.
Right.
And if you stay too long, you burn all that. You're going to cause some trouble in the long run, probably. UVB, very valuable. That's mostly where the vitamin D is coming from. And without getting into the science, the vitamin D is created first in your skin, up through the lymphatic tract, starting with the kidneys and or through the liver, and creating the usable form of vitamin D. And so the reason, and again, connecting a really long answer to a short question about how this connects to Alzheimer's or other major issues is, again, when you study sunshine and what it'll do for you, in this book, they list all of the benefits of natural sunshine, which we're mimicking here as well, without the bad parts, because sunshine 95% UVA, 5% UVB. This is putting out 95% UVB, 5% UVA. So we've been able to engineer, and that was part of the tricky part. Like I said, that took a lot of time, a lot of engineering, and working with the medical people. So people that have their vitamin D at the appropriate level will see huge decreases in all of these afflictions. There's 81 of them listed here, from some of those things that I've already talked about to many forms of cancer and all of that. So short run benefits of getting your D where it should be, plus, like I say, those other issues, which are nitric oxide up, serotonin, endorphins, BDNF, all of that. When you have those levels at the right place, short run, the biggest thing we hear from people is, I think I'm sleeping a lot better already. That's after 2-3 treatments. And then I was talking to a lady the other day, and she said, my husband tells me I've got a lot more energy. And then midterm, so maybe a few months to years out, again, with the appropriate levels of D and all these other benefits, colds, flu, all of that should drop right off. You can never say you're never going to get any of that, because if you're in proximity to somebody that's got really bad cold, you might get it. But if your levels are up, maybe it won't last as long. Then long term is where we get into the really exciting kind of benefits of having your body. And this, it's one little piece that we have here, but there's a lot of other things put together. But the best time to plant a tree, of course, was 20, 30 years ago. The second best time is what we're dealing with. So in any case, that's it. So coming back to the device, the engineering behind it is that distance from skin to light source is really important. We have engineered this by testing every area within here to have the exact same treatment level throughout. And it's the right amount that the doctors say we can take that'll give us all these benefits without causing trouble. Really important. So that's a big part of it. Then it's a matter of, people often ask us, well, just a minute, I've got a spot here. Shouldn't I put my arm in there? The UVB creates all these benefits just on the surface of the skin. So but then it goes into your body. And so systemically, you'll now have all those benefits. So you might have a problem on your leg, but if you treat here and get your D up and all these other benefits, then it's getting benefit there. So to come back to your original question with regard to benefits and, how does this all relate to the full picture? Early on in our whole research here, as we were starting this whole project, we met a group of doctors out of LSU in Louisiana, and they were setting up a clinical trial. This was early COVID days, and their clinical trial was to take patients that were on ventilators and critically ill in the ICU and treat them with UVB light only. And they believed, from knowing what they knew about UVB light, that they were going to do some real good things here. And they also set up it was a double-blind trial, and they had a placebo light as well. And the people that were treated with the UVB were walking out of the hospital within a relatively short period of time. They actually, at the end of the trial, and this was peer-reviewed at Baylor, at the end of the trial, they proved that 60% reduction in mortality. Wow. So in their words, as we were talking to them, this was really exciting stuff. In the sense that they said there are people walking around New Orleans today that would have been 6 feet under. And so, and the people that got the placebo, most died. And so they did say that when they put together the expanded version of this trial, they will not use a placebo. It was that heavy, that effective.
Hey, if you are finding this entertaining, informative, useful, can I ask you quick favor? Just scroll down, whether it's on your phone or on your computer, hit the like button, and also hit subscribe. I do quite a few interviews like this. I'm also going to be reviewing the Enyrgy product. So is that simply addressing a vitamin D deficiency, or is there more going on there? Actually, before you answer that, if someone is checking their vitamin D levels, let's just say every month, they're doing a test, and they're good to go, like the levels are perfect, is there any benefit to using this device?
Let's talk about what perfect is. Okay. Right? Because over the years we've learned that there are so many more benefits higher up. And now in the US we use nanograms per milliliter as our measurement, and I'm not sure what you're using down under.
Is it millimoles? Nanomoles, yeah.
Per liter.
Yeah.
So quick math on that is anything I say with nanograms per milliliter, multiply by 2.5, and you'll be at nanomoles per liter. And so the current consensus among the scientists is somewhere between 40 as a floor to 60, but now over the last 2, 3, 4 years, they're kind of all saying 50 to 70. Right. And yet I one day thought, I think the best way to find out is to ask the researchers, what do you keep your levels at? Yeah, right. So in asking that question to a few of them now, they're all keeping it over 70. Wow. 70 to 100 is where they keep it themselves. They just, I guess, for whatever reason, don't want to say that. Yeah. One of the first questions I asked Dr. Bruce Hollis out of Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston, who is on our board. And one of the first questions I asked him when we got together the first time was, how many cases of toxicity, vitamin D toxicity, have you seen in your 46 years of doing research on vitamin D? That's all he has done in 46 years. And you know what the answer was? 0. Wow. 0. And so he's not afraid to see people with pretty high levels. And now, could you get there? You absolutely could, but it would have to be, you can't with light. There, again, research with, lifeguards in California and surfers on, in the sun and so on and so forth. Pretty much the body will stop when the vitamin D is up right in that 100 range, 105, 110, 95, in that range kind of thing.
So then going back to the study in the hospital, was the benefit simply due to the extra vitamin D? Like, is that kind of the conclusion of this? I mean, is that what the researchers were trying to figure out?
That's what they believe, that they made the first step toward proving for the scientific and medical community. Now, to take that a step further, is they said to us, they're very confident that with UVB light, they can stop the progression of autoimmune diseases, MS being one of the bigger ones here. And yet, so we got all excited as a company. We're thinking, oh my God, if we can stop or cure MS, wouldn't that be something? The clinical trials to do that, to get that through FDA, are going to take years and years and years. We don't even know when that would be able to happen. And it would be a floor of 30 to 50 million and probably quite a bit more. So you can see where I'm going with that thought. That's not necessarily something you're going to get on right away. And it's not something that us as a company that we're capable of doing at this point. So we said, how do we bring these benefits to the public at large, to people generally, at the current stage of, where we're at with all of these? And the answer is through the wellness community, by delivering it on a supplemental basis. So our claim is that we know UVB makes vitamin D.
So this isn't a
It's
medical device. It's just a consumer health product.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so it's all so fascinating. I've been well aware of the benefits of sunlight and light, in general for a long time now. Circadian rhythm, all sorts of things. But I recently did a full lab test. I do one every 6 months or so, and what are we at the moment? May. So I think I did this in March. So we're coming out of summer in New Zealand, right? And I try to get outside as much as I can. I mean, I have to work inside and that. But what was interesting is my vitamin D levels were low. Okay, so the New Zealand range, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but the New Zealand range is lower than the Australian range. And I used to live in Australia, so I'm used to doing Australian tests. And I used to always be like low-ish in Australia, but it's actually a lot lower in New Zealand now that I've been in New Zealand, which isn't surprising because we get a lot less sun, the weather's not as nice, but I was still in the range, right? So the doctor's like, it's fine because it's in the range. But if you're looking at the Australian range, I'm really low. But then if you're looking at, say, what alternative health doctors and, people who are passionate about this, I'm extremely low. So I was like, oh my God, this is something I need to address. But it does just show how there's so much variability with the numbers, and just being in the range. It's the same with like testosterone, for instance. You can be rock bottom in the range, and the doctor gives you the green tick, but deep down you're like, this isn't right. So that in itself is fascinating. The other question that I have is, earlier you touched on the benefits of UVB not just being vitamin D. Now, I wasn't actually aware of these other benefits. So what's going on here? You mentioned serotonin, endorphins. Yeah. So can we unpack that? And is there research around this?
A lot of it. This is only part of it. When I say 1,224 studies, that's just based on what they wanted to show with sunshine. Vitamin D research, which tends to overlap into these other areas as well. The last number I saw, I think, was 73,000 actual trials and research studies done on that. So it's deep. This isn't. I think if you read 73,000 of them, you would be convinced that that's probably true. And when you say range, where range is so important is, like you say, and this is where our medical community they don't have time to learn everything about everything. That's the challenge, right? And that's where the wellness community comes in, because you're a specialist in red light, and you can probably tell us a lot of detail about red light that people that are even engineering it might not know. And so the thing about range is this. Let's talk about D specifically for a minute, and then let's come back to some of these other benefits. D, for example, there was a study done with regard to breast cancer, and it was learned that the average woman that had breast cancer had a D level in the teens. I think it was about 18. And that was actually a coincidence, but Scott, my co-founding partner, his wife got breast cancer, ended up with a double mastectomy, and so on and so forth. And this was long before we knew about all this. And coincidentally, her level was 18. So she was average at that point. The research shows, and there was an extensive study done in, I think it was about 2018. The result was that they learned that women with levels above 70 had an 80% reduction in breast cancer compared to those below 20. And it's, I guess the way we look at that is to say, there's no such thing as a guarantee on anything. But I know I've asked my wife to make sure she keeps her D way up, and she's always in that 70 to 100 range we're talking about. And we just feel good about that because she did have a scare here just in the last couple of years. And so, so the problem with range is if you said even 40 to 60, which was what used to be, now it's 50 to 70. But
yeah, sorry, I think the New Zealand range is 40 to 60, and when you convert it, and I think I was in the 40s.
Yeah, yeah. So
and sorry, and Australia is probably at that higher 50 to whatever you mentioned. That must explain the difference. New Zealand's just a couple of years slow behind this.
So at even 40, we know you've got a lot of protection against a lot of these problems that might come at you compared to someone that's at 15.
Right, but it's still far from optimal, isn't it?
But at 50, there's other things. At 60, there's more. At 70, there's more. It starts to get thinner above 70. And that's why the researchers really say, once you're over 70, you're getting, 99% probably of the protection that this will afford you.
Okay, so what about these other benefits?
Okay, so the other benefits, and this is other parts of the range, and why we've got a very tight, narrow band here on UVB, but we purposely allowed some UVA to come in here because that also, nitric oxide's a good one as an example, and as you know, that's cardiovascular health, right? And it's a vasodilator, and heart health long run is a big deal because, as we know, cardiovascular disease is the number one killer. That, and of course then cancer. The serotonin, endorphins, again, just some of the feel good things. So we've got people all over the northern parts of the U.S. that for parts of the year have seasonal affective disorder and so on. So here's where we get asked a lot. Okay, so vitamin D and all these other things, how do I get them naturally? Okay, and we say, go out in the sun. Unless you live north of the 35th parallel, then you're going to have to get a plane ticket. Because north of the 35th, which in the U.S. here is Atlanta and Las Vegas, as an example. Anything north of that, and you're getting no benefit for several months of the year. We were just in Florida, South Florida last week, just for fun. I pulled up my phone, I checked the UV index at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in South Florida in May. It was 2.
Wow. Yeah.
So it also shows it has to be midday, even if you're in the south here, in the north, in your end of the world. So to get it naturally is difficult to start with, to get there in the right time. The rule of thumb, by the way, is if your shadow is longer than your height, the UV index isn't giving you anything. So that it's a good little rule of thumb.
And then of course the issue with that is Florida midday. You probably don't want to be in the sun for too long anyway, right? Like, I mean, it's too intense, it's too hot, it's too humid, you get sunburn. It's a
20 minutes.
Act. Yeah.
If you can do it. But
and then,
what are you, I don't know about you, what are you doing at, from 10 to 2 most days? I mean, we're here making videos,
Have you heard of the app D-Minder?
D-Minder?
Yeah.
Yeah?
You have? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I haven't used that for years. I'm assuming it still exists.
I don't even know much about it. I've just heard it mentioned.
Okay, so I hope it still exists. You put in your location and it will tell you when UVB is in the sun based on your location, right? It'll tell you the hours. And then it will tell you how much, you say, what are you wearing? T-shirt and shorts. How long are you out in the skin? What's your skin tone color? And it will tell you roughly how much vitamin D you're going to generate. And it was, when I first heard about that app, I was in Sydney. And I didn't even realize, I think Sydney even has a chunk of time where, like, a month or so where there's no UVB. I'm like, oh my God, like, well, Sydney, it's like the coastal beach, beautiful city. And then of course you go to New Zealand and it's like a 3-month period. And yeah, you go to some of these very northern cities and it's like 6 months of the year. I'm like, oh my gosh. But that's a really cool app because you can see on that particular day when there's UVB light. And you see the contrast between, not even middle winter, like autumn versus say like, early summer, like the intensity. So really cool app, worth checking out. All right. The big question that I'm sure everyone's screaming out for me to ask, why not simply take a vitamin D capsule?
I think you should. For sure. We absolutely support oral vitamin D. Give you an example. Scott Hansberry, our CEO of Enyrgy, last November, before he was treating himself with the light, had been taking oral vitamin D, and his level was at 38 at the time. So could he have taken more? Maybe. We know another associate of ours that was taking 10,000 a day and couldn't get it above 30 something. So everybody is different, and this is where even D-Minder, it's the accuracies.
Of course. The reason I like D-Minder though is just it showed me, oh my God, there's actually not that much UVB.
Exactly, and if I use an iPhone, and on the iPhone, if you go to the weather app, it shows the UV index for any city you go to, and you need to be 3 or above to get anything.
Oh, is it true?
3 or above, and that's why I didn't finish that story about South Florida. I said it was at 2. Well, at 2 you're getting nothing.
I didn't realize that.
And that was at 4 in the afternoon.
But yeah, I know with D-Minder, some people geek out on all the numbers and the dosing. I personally never used it for that. But so what's going on there? 10,000 IU a day, and that's still low. What, have you looked into this? Do you have thoughts on?
Absolutely. There's so many variables with this, and that's where it got really, really complicated, and why we needed some people that are way smarter than I am to put the protocols together. Because this device is sophisticated enough to be able to, the first thing we do on an app, it's all driven by an app, by the way. Right. Yeah, so the first thing you do after you download the app is you're going to get a skin type quiz, and it's the Fitzpatrick skin type quiz, which is in use around the world. And depending on your skin type, it'll give you the timing that you can handle, and it'll give you the most that you should get with your skin type. And of course, skin type, lighter skin types, like you and I are both pretty fair. You're probably a 2, maybe a 3. I'm a 3. And then you go to African Americans are 5 and 6. And so the lighter you are, the less time you can stand in the sun, and everybody knows that. And the darker you are, the more you would need to generate these benefits. And so that's where you have all that problem. The other part of it is, the older you are, your skin just starts to lose its ability to create, you're quite a bit younger than me. Your time in the sun, you're going to make a lot more vitamin D than I am. Right. So that's why a device like this is super good for somebody like me. It gives me many more options. If you're heavy, if you're overweight, D ends up getting stored in the fat and doesn't do anything for you. So if you're significantly overweight, you're going to need a lot more vitamin D. Well, yeah, I have a friend she's pretty heavy. She's probably over 200. Yeah. She needs orally. She would need at least 15,000 to move the needle, because it's going into that fat.
So is there an issue? Someone takes 100,000 IU. Is there a point where the body just can't absorb enough in terms of oral consumption? I still don't quite understand why someone can take 10,000 IU and have really low numbers.
Body assimilating.
Yeah.
Is some people's body just doesn't assimilate it. And I want to interject here to say, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm regurgitating what I've read in the research. So go read about it yourself, because I might have made a mistake, kind of thing. So that's my disclaimer.
It's something that I'll personally have to look into, because I have heard this before, actually, and in podcasts and that over the years, and the recommendation is often supplement plus get out in the sun, to get the best of both worlds. And a lot of people unfortunately can't get out in the sun, whether it's where they live or the jobs they live. Even myself, it's just hard. So yeah, it's just fascinating, because I'm like, that's a lot of supplements and they're low. But again, I take vitamin D. Sure. I've upped it since my lab test results, but I was low. I'm like, oh my God, this is hard. Fortunately,
to finish that thought though, as far as oral vitamin D, because I want to touch on, because you mentioned 100,000, okay, which is pretty extreme. Yeah. Okay, so it's important to kind of just cover that from what research shows. Mm-hmm. Could you get toxic with vitamin D? And the answer is you absolutely could. And I don't know on any one person whether 100,000 would do it or not.
Right.
It might.
Yeah. So don't go out there and experiment.
Yeah, there would be no point in that.
Yeah.
If you can't get enough vitamin D from using from getting in the sun or using this light, and taking some oral up to typically 5,000 IUs a day should be lots for most people. I know people that take 10. And I don't know of too many people that take more than 10. It just kind of gets to a point where it might not make sense. Plus, you can also get, you can overload your body on the hypercalcemia side of things, and that you don't want to go there. And that's why D is so important, because it helps your body calcify your bones, and so that's why. Again, osteoporosis should be something that we shouldn't have any problem with if we've been aware for a long enough period of time. Osteomalacia in older folk.
So those are all the downsides with taking it orally, because I mean, ideally, optimally, we get it from the sun. I mean, that's, I suppose if you look at it from an ancestral point of view, the vitamin D content from our diet would have been minimal, right? Is that?
Oh, we were never designed to get our D from our diet. Dr. Hollis has a paper that I really enjoy the way he refers to that, because you often get asked the question, can I just not get it from my diet? Like I, should be able to, I thought, and the answer is, well, shiitake mushrooms, sun-dried, reindeer meat, 50 glasses of milk a day. There's various ways you can get it from your diet, none of which are even close to practical.
The milk, is that
it's just
because it's fortified?
It's fortified.
So if you just had raw milk, there's very, very little.
I don't even know that number, but I'm sure it's a little bit because the cow was in the sun.
Right. But because I know over here, it's all fortified with vitamin D, right?
Yeah.
But in New Zealand, it's not.
If you want to, I mean, it's a whole different subject. I don't want to go down that rabbit trail, but Dr. Hollis did extensive research on lactation and women breastfeeding and what they need to do to make sure that the infant gets enough vitamin D, and they need to supplement, and so that's just another whole area.
Okay, so earlier on you mentioned other products out there doing similar things in terms of producing UVB. I know you've touched on this briefly, but one product that has been around for some time and is quite popular is Sperti. I think that's how you say it. I don't think I've ever
I've seen
vocalized it.
Familiar.
Key differences. How's yours better? I'm assuming it's better.
I don't have the exact statistics. I spoke to a person, engineer, that had tested the Sperti, and I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, it was about 60% UVA.
Oh, really?
Yes, and then a portion of UVB. It's a bulb, and it has there's no way of measuring the distance you should be from it. So again, I wouldn't cast aspersions. I'd say, if you don't have this, and you have a Sperti and you can figure out how to use it correctly, I can't imagine that it would be anything but beneficial. But this is just the next level of sophistication. This is 30 years or 40 years later.
I actually really like how you've done that. Like you've built in the distance, like that's physically restricting you in terms of how close you can get. And obviously, you just press up against it, easy. And then with the app, it controls the dosing and everything. I'm like, we need to see something like this in the red light therapy space, because there's so many variables. But then red light therapy, there are so many unknowns. So someone could come out with something like this, and then there would be someone who would say, well, actually, you should be closer. So maybe we're too early to see something like this in the red light therapy space. But I do like how it's kind of done for you. It's very, very, very attractive. And now the overdosing, I know, again, you've touched on this, but I just want to go back to it. Firstly, there's no benefit for someone to sit next to it for half an hour.
They wouldn't be able to. It's on the app.
Right.
Remember, you do the skin type test.
But what happens if they just restart it over and over and over again?
The app won't let you drink more than once a day.
Okay, that's got to go.
So now the closest you can come to tricking it would be to take a treatment at 5 to midnight and one at 5 after.
Right.
Because we first started saying, well, we should have 24 hours between. Not very convenient.
Wow.
Because if you treated yourself at, 4 in the afternoon, and then the next day the most convenient time is 9 in the morning, you want to be able to do that, and that's fine. We went back to the medical people. We said, would it matter if one treatment was just a few minutes after the other? And they said, not really, as long as it's not a bunch in a row.
But that's the only way you could do it.
That's the only way, and I wouldn't even advise it, just because why would you bother? Why would you do that?
There's no need. Okay, so then what happens if I were to get one of these for my family? Are you saying only one person, like it can only be used once a day, or do you have users?
No, then, because it's an app, so each family member has to
Have the app.
Individually be recorded on the app.
So does everyone need their own phone to use it, or can one app have multiple accounts?
As it is today, set up today, each one needs to be on their own phone.
All right.
Which, I don't know about you, but every kid I know owns a phone, so it
well,
isn't really
my kids are 5 and 2, so no.
Now,
but
remember that we're not treating below 18 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's use myself as an example here. Let's say I'm sitting at 44. I get one of your Enyrgy devices and I follow the app, using it daily. How soon am I going to see a bump up in numbers? I mean, do you have case studies? Have you done studies on it?
That's the best way to describe it, Alex, because again, everybody's so different. I could make a guess, but I might be wrong just because I've misfigured what your skin type is or how your body responds and so on and so forth.
Is there a rule of thumb though?
Yeah, we've got, needless to say, we have a lot of information as far as from people that are using it and where they were when they started. I started to tell you about Scott. He was at 38. He was taking some oral. He dropped his oral back, but he was on the light then from last November through. And then I believe it was about 6 months later that he tested his D, and he was over 100. So pretty effective. I have been at typically in the 90s, and I dropped the oral completely, and I stayed above the top end of the range. So you got to remember I'm treating every day pretty much. So that takes me where I want to be, and again it's just me. Someone else might need to continue with some oral and do the light, and that's where really individual testing is so important. The biggest thing, if I could pass on to your followers, is to say, test your D for sure. And I don't know, maybe I'm preaching something that you've been preaching for years. I don't even know that, but there are 37 trillion cells in our body, and almost all of them have receptors for vitamin D. Our body's giving us a clue as to how important it is.
So you mentioned 2 examples there. Do you have more data points, like in terms of what people are seeing? A lot. Those are just some examples. They're all nice increases. Another fellow specifically, he was at 34, I believe, and he tested, I think it was a fair amount later, a few months, and he was at 65. And I was at 34, by the way, which is really interesting because, here I live in Arizona. I know. I was about to say I'm sun all the time.
I ride my mountain bike 4 times a week. I hike. I'm outside. I just want to be outside all I can, and I'm in Arizona. There's not a lot of cloudy days here.
I know. To be honest, I've been here 5-6 days. I'm I love this place. I love it as well because it's a dry heat. It's just nice being outside. You don't go outside and then within minutes you're sweating.
I just assumed when we first got into this, the first time I did a D test, I just assumed, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
Because I'm outside all the time.
It's kind of scary, isn't it?
I was 34.
Okay, so what about Scott, who went from 38 to, what did you say? 100.
Yeah.
How long ago did he do that test showing 100?
That's 6 months. That was about 2 months ago now, 6 weeks to 2 months.
Has there been anyone using it a long time? And where does it plateau at after ongoing use? Or are you guys still quite early in that regard?
We know from research that if you continue to test and you continue to increase, just cut back the oral. this is natural.
Right.
So you're going to want this to be your primary if you can.
Yeah.
And we are confident that if you're in front of it enough, it will be.
It'll-
And so, again, coming back to the research that I mentioned earlier about the lifeguards and the people on the beaches, and they did landscapers, and in the South that are in the sun all the time, and they just top out at about 100, maybe something a little bit over. So, on light only, you'll top out there. If you add oral, you may continue to rise, in which case you might as well just stop the oral. There's no point.
I'm curious, did you or Scott, when you did those blood tests, see changes in any other metrics? Cholesterol, I don't know, CRP, testosterone, anything like that? Was there anything else that you
I haven't checked any of that against it, and so I can't really comment on that. As far as how I feel between the difference of 34 level of D and where I'm at now, which is, like I say, on the high end of the range, it's pretty significant. Sleep is one of the biggest things that we hear from people, as I just don't sleep that well. And that was me as well, in terms of, I slept really well, but man, short. Like, 5 hours was kind of my point that I got. And nowadays, I'm a minimum of 6 and lots of times up to 7.5. And I do feel better as a result of that. And I haven't changed anything else. And so that quite likely would reflect, I would think, on this, because I haven't changed anything. Let's just come back for a minute to, the oral supplementation and all the moving parts there. One of the things that the scientists, the researchers recommend is magnesium citrate. And the reason that the research shows that you want to take magnesium citrate, because it gives you about a 50% boost in your D. It's what do they call it? A cofactor with D. And so that's just automatic that you want to do that. And the other part that I want to come back to was why oral. If I've got my levels high enough with oral, isn't that good enough? We get asked that so much. And the answer is, again, research. Let's go to the research, get the scientists to tell us. And so what they tell us is that there's a lot of good comes from oral, but where it falls short is the immune system. With oral supplements, the way they described it to us was to say that your D and your immune system are uncoupled. They're not working in concert. If you get your D from light, natural light, then it couples it back up, and your D readings now will indicate where your immune system is. In other words, if you can get natural D through sunshine, and we believe here as well, then it'll increase your immune system.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which is obviously huge.
I mean, I've got 2 little kids. I do so much travel. And the one thing that drives me nuts, I'm in health and wellness, right? I do a lot of things right, and not everything right, but a lot of things right. And I'm like, it drives me nuts when I get sick. I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I need to figure out this immune system thing, because there's nothing worse than being run down for like a day or two every month or so, whatever it is. But maybe it's because my vitamin D levels are too low and I'm not getting enough light. So UVB light, right?
We've just learned that low D is, the epidemic is just so severe in terms of what all the problems that come out of that. Short run, it's just not feeling as good, not having the energy and all of that kind of thing. And then long run, as we talked earlier, just huge. So we hope that people can get their D up, and we know that we have something here that'll help them.
I need to try it. I mean, I've got enough data points now. I've tracked my sleep and all of that, and it'll be a good little experiment. I want to talk a bit more about the product itself. First question, and this isn't necessarily about the product, but even supplementation as well. Is there an optimal time of day to use it? I mean, naturally, you kind of think, well, I should use it around midday. I've even heard people say they don't like taking vitamin D supplements, or even a multivitamin that's got vitamin D in it, late at night, because the body may get that vitamin D and think, oh, the sun's up. I mean, have you looked into this, and what are the recommendations in terms of ideal timing for using the Enyrgy device?
We don't have research on that specifically, but the convenience factor is what's most important, because to get it at all, and I think that would be an individual thing, to get it at all is so flexible. If you're working shift work, you can still get your vitamin D via light. If it's more convenient to get it in first thing in the morning and you have a device at home, you can get it then. You'd want to experiment yourself a little bit. If you try it at night, and if it felt like it was a cup of coffee, I guess then don't do that.
Okay, so how does it compare to the sun in terms of intensity and dosage? And yeah,
good question. We get asked that a lot, and there's research behind it. And as I mentioned earlier, the sun's 95% UVA, we're 95% UVB, so there's a big difference in the structure of it. And this can only be done with a LED card, because we have so much control. When for instance, these nano LEDs that make this up, it's called a binning process. When we have our people select the LEDs, the chips that we're going to be using, they're choosing less than 5% of the production.
Wow.
And so it's part of the cost, because believe me, the other ones get used, just not in our stuff. But what's important here is the research shows this. I find this really fascinating. Is the research shows that this kind of light compared to natural sunshine is 2.4 times efficient, which is kind of a big deal. But what's the really big deal is it's in 1/60th of the time. So our 4-minute treatment is going to give someone the equivalent of 4 hours of healthy sunshine without the bad part.
Wow. 4 hours in 2 to 4 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Well, 2 hours if you're 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. But you can't be in the sun for 4 hours; it'll cause trouble. So that's where just another feature.
And you'll lose your job if you're outside.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
That's true, yeah. Oh, very, very cool. Now, you mentioned earlier you use it on the torso, the midsection,
and then the back.
and the back.
Yeah.
I mean, could you use it elsewhere, or there's no real need to though?
Yeah, the reason that we chose that was, number one, we get a nice big area here. Like you can see, if I was trying to get my arm in here or anything else, I'm not getting as much skin. So it's a large amount of quite flat skin that's important, so that we can regulate the dosage. With the ultraviolet product, it's time, distance, and dosage. So we've got the app telling us, based on your skin type, how long you can get. We've got the distance already measured, and we've got the dosage that we had the medical people help us understand what we needed to deliver. And so a highly sophisticated device. I also want to mention, while we're talking about that, some people, I said mostly a flat surface, front and back. Well, some people have not quite as flat in the front, especially some of the guys. And so they'll intrude into the space a little bit. We wanted to address that. So if you can see, there's 2 little sensors there.
Yeah.
Okay. Those will sense when we're by the device, and they'll sense very accurately. If you go in a little further because you're a little heavier in that spot or something, it cuts the power a little bit.
Wow.
Right. If you back away completely, it shuts the equipment off. So for instance, if you are in the middle of your treatment and your mother calls, well, you better take that call. And or more, your wife. In any case, if you step away, it'll stop, and then you can, on the device, you just hit resume.
That's very cool. That's actually well done. I mean, I had questions on duration and all these things, but it's all factored in. What about hair? Like, a lot of people have a bit of hair on there, on the midsection.
It doesn't seem. Yeah, I'm sure it affects it a little bit, because there's going to be a little shadow or something, but it's not that big a deal. It's just like when you go in the sun, you can't stay longer just because you're a little hairier than the next person, really, but it's more by skin type.
And then obviously I cover red light therapy a lot. Are there any issues or benefits even of using it? Like, because I can see myself doing my red light therapy session and then doing this straight after, because it's only a minute or 2 each side.
1 to 2 minutes to 2 to 4 minutes. You'll start out with a minute typically,
right,
And then as your body gets used to it, you'll gradually graduate to where you'll be up to, over time, up to 2 minutes.
Okay.
Front, 2 minutes back. So the maximum treatment today is 4 minutes.
Okay, so are there any issues or even benefits of doing it around the red light therapy session? Do you have any thoughts?
I don't
on
have any research on
Yeah.
that, so
I can't imagine anything. I mean,
Yeah.
again, if you're trying to mimic nature as much as possible, and I say that as we're sitting next to these like advanced sort of lights, I guess it would make more sense to try to do it during the daytime, right? Like, because that's when naturally.
I'm a believer in that for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the deal then with this? I mean, is it available to customers now? Is this a prototype?
It is now. We literally just rolled it out at the at a big wellness show in Florida, and that's our national rollout. Now we've been using it and treating people in the Phoenix area for several months since last beginning of the year, really, and so about 5 months.
Okay, so how much does it cost?
$9,997 is the MSRP.
So then it's targeted more to clinicians, is it? Like, or you're trying to get it into home users?
We have a home product, and that's for up to 6 people to use.
What's this?
At home? This is for home use, yeah, and that's for up to 6 people to use, but that's all driven by the app, and so we know which device is where, and so the in a commercial setting, so whether it be in any of the wellness facilities, we've got it in some of the gyms, chiropractor, naturopath, so on and so forth, then their clients can treat right there if they have the device in their facility, and they just deal directly with them like they would with any of the other therapies they might get there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Like the gym, especially with the 2 to 4 minute usage time, doesn't it? And then they've got, I mean, depending on the gym, if it's like a high-end gym, like maybe it's included in the membership, but it can always be sold as an add-on for lower price gyms.
And we have financing on it, for it as well, so that it's affordable as far as for most people.
Okay, so someone who owns a gym or a clinic or a wellness center, they'd get a model that has can be used with more users.
Typically unlimited. The device really is trouble-free. We're talking solid state electronics,
So what would it cost for someone like that? Or does the pricing vary, or do you have some price? Public price?
Yeah, $29,000.
$29,000. Okay, and then in terms of warranty, are there issues with these LEDs burning out, like intensity drop off? Have you tested all of that sort of stuff?
150,000 treatments.
Okay, yeah, cool. What is the warranty for a consumer?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and do you ship internationally, or are you just focusing on America at the moment?
We're in the U.S. as of today.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have plans to roll it out to Canada and Europe? Or?
What's so interesting? It's driven by the engineering side of it, electrical approvals mostly.
Got it. Right.
So.
All right. I know what you're thinking. This is really cool, amazing product. I'd love to get one, but that price is really, really high. I mean, that's exactly what I thought when I heard the price. I can see why the price is that expensive, because there has been a ton of research and development going into it. It's also made in America, and it's a super high quality product. However, it's still expensive. Now, I spoke to the co-founders about this, and they have given me a whopping 30% off discount for you guys. That's for the personal product. If you want to get the commercial product, the discount's even larger. They're keen to get some traction going early on, so I don't know how long this discount will be valid for. However, if you do want to take advantage of this, then just have a look in the notes below. I'll put a link in there. You just need to order through that link, and the discount will be applied at the checkout screen. I should mention, I also get a small commission for doing this, so it's a win-win for all parties. But again, links are down below. So, and this is made in the States?
It's made right here.
Yeah.
Scottsdale, Arizona, right in our own facility. We're very proud of that fact.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I think, you've come up with something very unique.
Thank you.
and especially around solving the problems, you know, with vitamin D deficiency.
This has been a work of love. I mean, we get up in the morning, and I think I speak for Scott and the other members of our team, which, like I say, we've got some pretty fabulous people here. But we get up in the morning with the idea that, you know what, we're actually doing some good, and it's pretty gratifying.
Yeah, it makes chipping away at work, business, companies, you know, so much easier when, yeah, you know, you're having a positive impact on people, right? So especially their health. Well, David, to be honest, I'm very impressed. I really enjoyed the conversation. I mean, I know a little bit about this stuff, but yeah, just purely from a personal point of view, I get a lot from it. I think the product is very unique, and yeah, it's going to help a lot of people. I'm excited to see, you know, the future of the company, because I think you're going to do good things. So well done. Thank you so much for your time. And before we wrap up, where can people find out more about Enyrgy? Where could they place an order if they want an order one? If they want to reach out to you or Scott, and also if there's anything else you'd like to share, now's the time. Reveal all.
The website is enyrgy.com, spelled Enyrgy. Enyrgy. So just one letter changed. And that's probably the best place to get it. It's a shopping website, so you're able to read about it, understand it from there, and order it if you want. And also, for those that might have picked up on Embrace the Sun, it's out of print.
Right.
So people might go, you know, to Amazon and say, I'd really like to get one. Well, last time I looked on Amazon, there was a used copy on there for about $100 or something. Somebody was trying to really do well with it. In any case, what we could do if people got a hold of you or even us and mentioned your name, we could get you a digital copy.
That'd be cool.
And we'd be happy to do that. So
all right,
we could do that through our website with info at enyrgy.com or through you.
Info at enyrgy.com.
We can get that to people digitally.
Yeah, check the show notes down below. I'll put a link to your website or contact form, and also if we can get a link to that book, I'll put it all down below. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions around this. So what is the best way for someone to reach out to you with a question, or Scott or your customer support team? Is it an email address, Facebook? What's the best platform?
Best is just email, contact@enyrgy.com. And again, spelled ENYRGY, contact@enyrgy.com.
Easy. Okay, great. Again, thank you so much for your time and your knowledge. And I know it's a weekend here, so again, super grateful for your time. Pleasure meeting you.
Thanks so much.
This
has been fun.
It has been. Good.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a wrap. Look, to be honest, I have to say that it was a very enjoyable conversation. I hope it was similar for you. It was very informative, and I personally love the product. Leave any questions, comments below. I want to read them. I'll forward them through to the Enyrgy team as well. And be sure to subscribe, because I actually went and purchased one of these and brought it home with me here in New Zealand. And yeah, as I talked about in the interview, my vitamin D levels aren't great. They're in the range, but they're very low in the range. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start using this device, and maybe in 3 months' time, 3 or 4 months' time, I'll do a follow-up lab test, and we'll see what happens. So hang around for those findings, hang around for that review. It's all going to be here on the channel. Hit the subscribe button. Otherwise, check out the Enyrgy website down below, or have a look at this video up here. Chances are you're going to like this one as well.